Hey, how's it going?
Good, good. How are you?
Doing well, kind of uh, dealing with this cold front thing in Texas. We were just kind of talking about it, so trying to stay warm.
Are you burning all the paper you find around the house, all the books?
Luckily, I moved to a friend's place, so he's got power. He's had it the whole time, so I don't know what you heard, but there was supposed to be like cycling around, like structured blackouts, brownouts. So like one neighborhood was supposed to have power, and then kind of switch with other ones. And then that just never happened for most people. It just went out and they never come back for like 30 hours. So a lot of people are super mad. It's kind of interesting to see what's going to happen. But my friend his has never gone out, but this afternoon at like 4 o'clock it went out, and we were like, "Oh shit, we just lost power." But then like 10 minutes it came back, and it's been fine since. So fingers crossed, we're okay.
All right. What are we talking about tonight?
We're gonna talk about SPACs. SPACs. Uh, yeah, I never heard of SPACs until this year.
All right. Why don't you tell us what a SPAC is?
Well, I want to know why I'd never learned about this in college.
I don't know. You must have had very crappy professors.
uh, I mean, what you should say, and I don't know. I mean, I guess you didn't teach it, but you could have just said, "David, you weren't listening because we learned all about this."
No, I mean these things are not. Come on, let's get them introduced, and then we go back to a little bit of history. And
Well, I have a chart, but uh, I guess the way I learned about it was this year. Companies started going SPAC on the exchanges. It was like right around. I guess it was early in the year, but I don't know. So the first one I think that was big was Virgin Galactic or DraftKings. It was one of those two, and I wasn't really interested, so I just kind of like saw it out of the corner of my eye, but did no research. And then the whole crash from COVID happened, and it was probably like April. My friend, who doesn't really know anything about stocks, he started talking to me about this company called Nikola, which is a whole thing on its own. People that follow stocks know the story. I'll touch on it briefly. He's like, you got to get this company Nikola, and the ticker he gave me was something that didn't make sense. So like the ticker didn't match the name of the company, and that's when I was like, what is this? Like it's an acquisition core? And then I heard it was like SPAC. What is that? And so eventually I did some research and figured it out. Like it's just basically a company that has money. They call them like blank check companies with the sole purpose of acquiring another company or merging with another company to take them public. And it was like a totally different way of IPOing. And I still wasn't like totally comfortable with it just because I'd never heard of it. So I never really invested in this Nikola company, even though the stock price went from like when my friend told me like the teens, I think all the way up to 90. Like there was so much hype around this company because they were like electrical vehicles that became like super trendy and all this stuff. And my friend had told me about this. He just kept saying, "David, you gotta buy, you gotta buy." And I just like watched it go up. And once it got into like the 80s or 90s, I said, "Mark, dude, you gotta get rid of this. It's like it's gonna come down. This is unsustainable. Like there's no purpose." And he ended up. I think he never sold, or if he did, maybe he sold in the 20s, which is still a good like little gain, but like such a letdown after it was up at 90. But what happened was the short seller came out and basically called Nikola, the company, a fraud. Okay. So what comes out is that they had this whole promotional video of these electric semis that they could drive, and the whole thing was faked. They actually pushed this semi down a hill and filmed this video telling investors, like, look, we have an electric truck that like a semi is ready to order. People are doing pre-orders, and people were saying they were going to be the next Tesla and beat Tesla. But all this comes out that they basically were an entire fraud. And the CEO goes crazy on Instagram and Twitter, ends up getting removed. But the whole thing is that like these companies go public, but there's just less due diligence around them. Like that probably never would have like passed the IPO process. Like a couple of years ago, WeWork tried to go public, and what happened is they have to basically shop around the deal, and people started looking through their financials and just didn't believe anything in there, and so they had to pull the IPO. But if they would have done one of these SPACs, that no one might have ever sniffed all the weirdness in the financials, and they still might have gone public, and maybe even run up to 90 and then all the way back down.
So let's try to be a little bit more precise. The reason why this works is because the SPAC is already basically listed, right? And then
yeah.
company. So it's an empty shelf, and then you basically buy some assets and put it in there, right? So shelf registration has been going on for a long time, but it has it's had up and downs during the tech bubble, the biotech bubble, because that's kind of how you fast track an IPO, essentially. Yep.
Check it, yeah.
There you go.
But it's really just exploded like the last couple of years.
Wow. Okay, so that's a big jump.
Yeah. And I think even this like first quarter is way ahead of pace of last year. Like there's a lot of these.
Yep.
And it's interesting because like there's all these what I call like financial celebrities that are starting to have SPACs. Even like real celebrities like sports stars like Jay-Z, he's got a marijuana SPAC now. I think Serena Williams has attached her name to a SPAC. Like all these famous people, like financial people. It's crazy. And then the one article I was trying to get, but it wasn't letting me go into it, but you can see it from, it's blocked for me. I don't subscribe to whatever this is, but you'll see here in the news, this firm was saying that SPAC sponsors pocket an average return of 400%. So that's like basically what is happening is if you raise a SPAC and you like attach yourself as a sponsor, you only have to put down a few percent. And once the thing actually merges, you end up getting a pretty good cut of equity within the new company. So it's like just a different way of how fees are being paid when companies go IPO or public. Like it used to be you pay a bunch of investment banks. Now you're kind of just giving over a piece of equity to these sponsors.
Yeah. Huh. I didn't realize it went up. There was so much volume. That's a big jump, actually.
Yeah, I saw another article that was like, if you can be a SPAC sponsor, it's like a guarantee. There hasn't been one that has missed out, because what happens is, well, let's talk a little bit about the process. Is like when these SPACs IPO, most of the time, no matter how much cash they've raised, basically the cash value of the stock equals $10 in the price. So they just adjust the number of shares. So it's always going to IPO around 10. There's only been one other that Pershing Square, a popular investment investment bank did, and theirs was 20, and they just did it to like show off that they can do it at 20. But the way it happens is they'll IPO around 10, and the retail people can buy, as close to 10 as they can get, and so it's a weird way for retail to be able to get newly traded companies that in the IPO process, they just wouldn't really be able to. And I'll use the example from last week, like Bumble, who's a popular dating app, did an IPO on the NASDAQ. And a couple of weeks ago, it came out that the pricing was going to be something like, I don't know, the high teens or 20s per share, right? So they have like a reasonable valuation of something like $1 billion or $2 billion. And a couple of days later go by and they've upped the the pricing, because there's too much demand for this IPO, is going to be like the high 20s, maybe 25, 26 a share. So valuation goes up a little bit. And then on the day that it opens on the NASDAQ, it gets bid all the way up to $76 a share. So valuation becomes eight or 9 billion. And it doesn't give like the retail people a chance to get into this new company. But like what the retail people are doing with these SPACs is they're just buying the SPAC based on the SPAC sponsor. So they'll say like, oh, this one, there's a real popular guy who's I think employee or investor on Facebook, but his name's Chamath. He's like big time now on CNBC. Like he's a fun guy. Anyways, he just attaches his names to these, and he did the Virgin Galactic. So he like was the first one to really take a cool company through this process. So people will just buy the SPAC because, oh, this is Chamath's SPAC. So we're going to buy it without knowing what company he's going to merge with. And the SPAC price will end up jumping to like 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, like these huge premiums just because certain people or rumors get started. So there'll be, this is good because I did one of these rumors. There'll just be rumors that this company is going to merge with this other company, and it's going to be so big because this company they're merging with is super popular or super cool or in like the cool tech space. So it's super interesting. And then eventually, you know, the news happens and they're either merging with that company or not. So, and the other thing I wanted to say is that when these SPACs go public, they sell 3 different kinds of instruments. So they'll just sell like the equity, and then they also sell units, which is like a combination of equity plus like warrants, or they sell the warrants individually. And for me, this is the first time that units or warrants were really even popular instruments on the exchange. Like they were kind of there off to the corner, but now all these retail people like on Twitter and Wall Street Bets are talking about trading SPAC warrants. It's just like, it's super interesting to me.
Oh, wow. So can anybody buy one of these things?
Yeah, anybody can. I mean, they're not on every single broker. Like for instance, Robinhood has the equity. I don't know if they have the warrants on there, but they don't have the units. And then like my friend, I think he uses Chase. They had, I think, the warrants in the equity, but not the units. Schwab has all of them, so that's what I'm using basically. But yeah, it's crazy, and these things like the volume is so much that they're just like every day it seems like there's a new rumor or a new thing going public, and there's just so much event and action happening that is a super interesting space. But everyone's kind of worried that the cream of the crop gets chosen to go public first, and the longer we go on this thing, the crappier and crappier companies are getting taken.
Would you be very surprised? I mean,
that makes sense to me.
Boy, I've seen this dance before.
Yeah,
not gonna end very well.
They're saying like as long as there's enough demand to suck up the crappy supply, it goes on, but eventually it will reach a tipping point.
Wow. I mean, I guess like for so for the past 10 years, we have seen companies going private. So private equity has had a very large boom, inflows of capital, and they took private a lot of companies that were publicly listed. So this is kind of the other way, the opposite way around. A bunch of companies that are private that are going public in these alternative ways. Now, I mean, I suppose that one interesting question would be, if you are Virgin Galactic, for example, I'm sure that they could have done an IPO to some extent. Although I don't know, they probably still have zero revenues, right? Have they flown anything yet?
Uh, just test missions. I mean, they have a little bit of revenue. I think they have like some commercial contracts and stuff, but it's like nothing. And they're supposed to, I think, have a test launch super soon, and
Yeah.
maybe flights this next year or so.
But I mean, look, back in the days when the tech bubble happened, there were a lot of companies that were IPOing with nothing, right? So
Yeah.
like that very famous company that now would have made bank during COVID. Um, basically, their entire business module was that they were gonna mail toilet paper to people.
Really?
This is 1999, late 1998, early 1999, right? And they do the IPO, they raise a bunch of money, and then they were bust like in a year and a half, right? When Nasdaq came down, they were one of the first to basically disappear. But they just didn't time it right. If they had been around now, they would have made anyway. So
Did you, because I was only, what would I have been, like 14, 13 when that was happening. So
uh,
I wasn't like in, there weren't apps and websites. Like there's no way for me to really be involved with that age. But were you like trading or anything? I remember, because I remember, I have a memory in my math class of my math teacher with CNBC on in the classroom, and she was talking about stocks. Like, so that's how crazy things must have been back
oh,
then.
no, so the tech bubble was insane. I mean, it was basically like, think about uh, crypto insane, right? So same level of kind of nonsense. I mean, obviously, not all crypto makes zero sense, but a lot of crypto stuff, who knows, right? So basically, at this point, you're throwing money at at the pool, and then some will pay back. But that was the tech bubbles like that. I mean, you had to follow things on the internet a little bit. Uh, like they you still had printer magazines like Wire and all this kind of stuff that if you wanted to follow sort of like the tech industry, you had to read up these insane projects, and but there were a lot of completely idiotic companies that they still raise a bunch of money. So I'm not surprised that there is a sort of a bubble. I mean, I think everybody understands that the real, if you really want to make a lot of money, you have to get into these things very early,
Mhm.
and then hope that one of them becomes Amazon or Facebook or one of those. But so I'm not surprised. I, I'm, I'm I'm surprised that SpaceX hasn't done one yet. But anyway, we'll talk about SpaceX on another episode of this thing.
Yep. Hopefully a future episode will have a good one.
So did you buy any? Did you
No,
buy any SPAC?
I can't yet. I'm still waiting for submit some forms to state of Texas, and then hopefully we can find some private shares out there.
No, SPAC. Did you buy
Oh,
the SPAC?
SPAC, space. Okay, yeah, I thought you meant SpaceX. So yeah, I've been doing SPACs basically ever since my friend told me about that one. I kind of saw the potential. I just was eyeing them. Um, and eventually jumped in a couple, just following like what people were saying, the rumors, and just small positions this whole time. Like I still, even though I conceptually get everything that's happening, I still just get nervous. Like something could happen that I I don't know that I would be upset about because I was kind of not gambling, but kind of like when you're buying one of these things, you're not invest like it's different than buying a company you're investing in. Like you're just buying into a blank check company that you don't really know what you're getting. It's just kind of hoping something cool happens.
Hmm.
But like the worst case scenario is that all the shareholders of that SPAC can vote against the deal happening. And if that happens, everyone just kind of gets their money back. So,
I
like I
doubt
said,
that that would be the case, but
and it hasn't happened, but like what I'm trying to say is like the floor is basically you get your $10 a share back. So if you end up buying at $10 a share, or a little bit higher, there's really no risk in these things. But if one of these SPACs ends up merging with a cool company, like Nikola, I'd never even heard of. It was that's just some.
wait, but what are you talking about? Because when are you talking about? When did you? When did your friend tell you about Nicola?
And it was in the teens.
No,
Okay.
no. When in time?
Oh yeah. So like there was a rumor that this SPAC was going to merge with them. It was
I,
just a rumor at the time.
I see. Because I remember reading about Nicola, and I even saw the video of the truck. I remember.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Um, but what I'm trying to say is like the strategy I've taken now is if a SPAC is going public and they have some management person I've heard of, like say he was uh, co-founder of LinkedIn or just like some interesting thing. Or Mark Cuban doesn't have one, but if he did, I'd instantly just buy it, just because it has that kind of name attached to it,
Hmm.
and that will instantly get a premium in the market. So if Mark did a SPAC, it would instantly go from 10 to 15, maybe even higher, just because he's attached. So you can play that game where it's just basically get a little bit of earnings because you can buy in low, the person's attached, you get 30, 40, 50%. But then say Mark Cuban happened to be taking some super cool company public. The thing is going to just run it's going to go 30, 40, 50s, just because the retail people are crazy right now. Like I did one a couple months ago that it was the only reason I bought it is because the SPAC's name or the target for it was that it was going to do sustainable energy. That's it. I didn't know who any of the people were, but they were going to do sustainable energy, and that is super hot right now.
Hmm.
So I put like $2,000 into warrants because it just appears that warrants have a higher upside potential than the equity because you're buying for such a small amount. Like the warrants, when they price, are like $1, $2, because the strike price on the warrants 18. So if it's IPing at 10, then you have it at 18 is the warrant strike.
Hmm.
You get why why it's so low. So you get a huge return. And they ended up merging with a company called ChargePoint, which is like the biggest electrical vehicle chargers. Like they have them in the mall, the Domain where I used to live. Those were all charge points. And the stock ended up running all the way from 10 up to the 40s or 50s. And so those warrants ended up going from like $1, $2 up to like 25, 20, $27.
Oh wow!
Uh, it's crazy. I just one of these just happened to me today. Um, like it already had gone up a little bit, but then the rumor came out and it just exploded. um, so it's I'll show you I'll show you the chart, and I took the screenshot of this one that's really worked out, and another one that it's not that it hasn't worked out, but it didn't go well like this. Okay, let's do this. Probably like this. Okay. Back here, here, here. Okay. How do I get rid of? I just like the lines. Okay, this is something called CCIV is a ticker. It's Churchill Capital Corp. And I actually think that whoever's the lead on this is actually some people have heard of, but that's not the reason I bought it. Basically, on Twitter, on early early December-ish, I think, I saw a rumor out there that they were gonna buy or merge with Lucid Motors. And Lucid Motors is like this really hot electrical vehicle company that I think it's the CEO was the lead design for Tesla. And there's like this whole backstory about Elon and this guy and like kind of maybe not getting along. And so it's like everyone thinks like Lucid's gonna come along and kind of give Tesla a run for the money. So there's this whole story behind it. And Lucid also has a lot of money from the Saudis. And at one point, the Saudis were invested in Tesla. So there's this whole like backstory thing. So immediately I bought 500 warrants just because there was a rumor on Twitter with absolutely no idea if it was true or not. And I did that because like the worst case scenario is you just go back to the $10. Like if it's not true, it doesn't matter if you can get it super cheap. So you can see from the chart, like it just slowly started building and building and building. And I think it just kept kind of going up through rumors through Twitter and the retail people. And then here is like when Bloomberg came out with this article and said that they had reasons to believe that this was true. And it just kind of kept building and building and building and building. And then today, a new, I think the company has actually released a press release saying that they hadn't closed a deal, but they were moving forward with it. And so it just tells you what buying a rumor when there's limited downside to what can potentially happen. And so I put it into a slide. This is it. I bought CCIV warrants, about 500 of them. And I think I paid around $2 because this is my cost basis, 2,000. And now they're trading for $30. So there's a return of 600% in about 2 months. Okay, and it's possible, like I said, that this never happened. I mean, now it seems like it's going to happen. And the question is like, how high is CCIV going to go? Because right now is already trading at like a $50 billion market valuation without ever making a car. It's never made one car. I think they're going to do like 30,000 cars next year. And Tesla's doing 500,000, so you can see how far behind they are. Yeah. But like, there's like all this hype behind it. And so that just happened today. This other one, I did a similar thing with.
Can't you just sell the warrant at this point?
I can, yeah, I can sell the warrants whenever, but like, I think that this still has room to run. Not that I believe the valuation should be higher than 50, but I've just seen how crazy these people are. Like these are the same kind of GameStop people that they just, everyone attaches Lucid to this name and like.
Wait, no, but hold on a second. If you bought the warrant so you bought the warrant for $2.
Yeah.
And what is the strike of the warrant?
18.
18. So at this point you are $32 in the money.
Well, so I think you might be trying to get to something. There is an arbitrage between the equities and the warrants. So like what you're saying is that if I have a price of 30 plus 18, it should be at 48, right? But the equity is trading at 52. So there's a $4 spread.
I'm not even there. I'm just trying to figure out. So the warrant should be trading at about $34.
Yeah, it should be.
So you bought it for 2.
Mm-hmm.
How many did you buy?
500.
So that's $1,000.
No.
500 contracts at $32.
So I have 500 contracts. I guess they were closer to $4 when I bought them because this is the cost basis is 2,000.
Okay.
So I bought them for 4, but they were worth 30.
So they would be about, you'd be making about 20 grand. Sorry.
Yeah, so it's worth the total thing is worth 15,000 right now, and I paid 2,000. So it's 13 grand. But this is like a super small position, like it's all about position sizing. But what the crazy thing is I see these retail people on on these blogs and stuff will post screenshots like this, and I don't think they're making it up. They're doing this with like 50 grand, 100 grand, like they're just putting they call it YOLOing, like you only live one life, or I don't know, you only live once, and they'll put their entire portfolio into something like this. And I'm not going to do it, but I keep thinking about it because it's like in this scenario with this company, it was like a worst case scenario, you don't really lose money, but best case scenario is true, true, and it ends up being lucid and it goes way up.
No, but wait. So say that, so let's say that this deal doesn't work out, okay? And the price goes back to the price of the shelf goes back to $10.
Yeah, it can happen.
Okay, so it's not that you can sell those $10 that share. Like it's not obvious you will find somebody to buy for $10.
But then they have to give the cash back. Like if you can't sell it on the open market, then the shareholders all vote for the company to dissolve and give the money back.
But I mean, so somebody must have control of that thing. I'm sure they don't float enough to control.
The company is holding the cash. They're funded with the money.
No, I understand that, but whoever is starting the shelf company, they probably hold the majority of the shares. So you're not going to be able to dissolve this thing.
Oh, so you're saying the risk could be that the shell company has a majority of the shares, so they never vote to give the money back.
Yeah.
But the open market is just like, I don't want those. So there's no demand for the shares, and you're just kind of stuck holding it. Yeah. I guess it's a possibility. I mean, it hasn't happened yet, but I could see how if there's enough out there where the demand dries up because they know that the owners of the company are going to get the money back, and there's risk there, that I could see how that would happen.
And I'm sure it happens all the time, actually.
Yeah, it might. Like I said, I've only been looking at this for less than a year now.
Huh.
But yeah, I mean, I'm just gonna kind of like let this one go for a little bit longer and see how high and how stupid this can be. Like there's people on like basically the message board saying that not the warrants, but the stock would go to 100, and so the warrants could end up being worth like 80. But I might sell a little bit and just kind of cover my original as well.
What is the maturity of the warrants?
I think they're 2 or 3 years.
And is there so if you try to sell now, you have an idea of how much sort of price impact that you would make by selling this stuff?
What do you mean price impact?
You have 500 warrants. I'm assuming that the warrants trade as well.
Yeah, they trade. Are you asking about like, is there enough liquidity to sell them? Yeah. I'm not gonna make a dent. Like I said, there's people putting their entire like 50K, 100K portfolio into warrants like this. So.
Wow.
But the other one below is like so this is like I sold off 250 of the share. I have 350 shares today, and I sold off 250 of them because it just hasn't worked out. And I'd rather have the cash to put into something else than wait for this one. And what this one is they're merging with a company called Payoneer, who's kind of like it's basically, if you want to take credit cards online, you can use them as like the code to do that. And so kind of think of it as sort of like PayPal, but more of a checkout flow. And PayPal and like all this digital economy stuff has been super hot too. And so I just kind of thought like, and I've heard of Payoneer being used at companies like Expedia. So I know like it's a big thing, and I just kind of thought like it would get a little bit of tailwind behind it because it's a cool tech name, not looking at the financials or the valuation or anything. And it just hasn't done anything. So I'm down like 15 bips, and let's just move on.
This is bad.
What do you mean this is bad?
No, I mean, I'm just thinking about the bigger picture, right? Forget about you. I'm glad you're making some money. This is bad.
That's like you're saying this is bad is like this is what people are doing, right? Like this is what investors are doing. Yeah, no. Like I said, I do not like this is investing. Like this is kind of, I wouldn't say it's full-fledged gambling, but it's somewhere in the middle. Gambling with I guess like some safeguards or something. But there's tons of people doing this, and they're making videos on like YouTube and TikTok. Like there's kids on TikTok that have like strange dances for these things, and will like jiggle around and like say the tickers and why you should buy them. It's crazy.
Wow. All right.
So that's SPACs.
Welcome to the SPACs. Or welcome back to the SPACs. I mean, they've never been this hot.
How long? Last thing, give me a prediction. How long will this be hot? Do we go the whole year SPACing, or does it eventually end?
It's hard to tell, right? Because they so these things are driven a lot by sentiment. But then, if some of these projects start floating like real companies that have real cash flows and stuff like that, these might keep going for a long time. I mean, I'm assuming that the SEC is probably looking into it very seriously by now. So I would not be surprised if they came up with a round of regulations that tamper down a little bit the market. But I mean, 2 years ago, people thought ICOs would end, and ICOs are still going on. So, and there's still a ton of them. So, after that first wave, the market certainly didn't stop. I mean, do you have any idea how much, sort of, what's the outstanding value of the total SPACs market right now?
No, I mean we can probably look back at that graph. Let me see.
So that was in number of deals.
Was it? Oh, it was number of deals. I've seen one that has billions of dollars. I mean, it's billions. It's not trillions.
I mean, it cannot be trillions. But...
Well, I distinctly remember you one time when we were talking about Bitcoin, saying that Bitcoin could never be trillions, and we're getting close.
Getting very close. Can't believe they broke 50,000.
So it looks like the value of SPACs last year was about 340 million. Wait, no, that's wrong. That's the average IPO size is 340, all in about 250 SPACs. So whatever that math is.
Wait, so again?
340 million average IPO price on 250 deals.
300 million on 200 deals. That's 600 million. 60 billion. That's a lot of money. Yeah, keep going. Okay, so you remember when you mentioned last time we talked about the best trade you ever made? I have one too. I found a piece of paper with some very long numbers in it, 2 numbers. Okay, it's like a half of an A4 white paper, and then guess what that was? That was some fraction of a Bitcoin that they bought for $5 in 2015.
Whoa!
That's worth $1,000 now.
The $5 is worth 1,000 now.
Yep,
That's crazy.
crazy stuff.
So can you actually can you have it in a wallet like with the
Yeah. So I put it on. I managed to put it on
on
Coinbase.
Coinbase?
Yeah.
Huh. Why'd you only do $5?
It was like one of my colleagues in the office was obsessed with this thing. So he bought 1 Bitcoin.
Okay.
And then he kept talking about Bitcoin and Bitcoin and Bitcoin. And I think the price might have been around $200, $300 at the time.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, give me $5 of it.
Okay.
And then we did this thing, and that was the old days where it was like, okay, you can put this in a wallet, or I can give you the keys, and you print them on a piece of paper and put them away. So he gave me this thing, and then I don't know, I put them in a stack of books, and eventually found them, and there you go.
Have you talked to that guy since? Like, do you know what he's up to?
No, he sold all the Bitcoin he had in 2018 when there was a big
oh no!
Yeah, I don't know. Man, it's completely bonkers. So it's like a bonkers. People that bought that stuff, think about it. It's like people who bought Bitcoins at $10, and they probably bought a ton of them. They probably still have them.
Yeah, I think some people, yeah, and some people, I mean, it's hard to know how high it's going to get, right? Like, I mean, if you had 10,000 Bitcoins that you bought at $1 and all of a sudden it's worth $1,000, there's going to be a part of you that wants to sell some of it, right? Like, you're not going to sell all of it, but you sell some of it, and then let's say in a year it's up to 5,000. Again, you're going to be like, holy shit! Like, I need to sell some of this. And so, to me, it becomes an exercise of how long would you have held on to it, and how much would you have? Which is, it goes back to how do you know when to sell, especially something like Bitcoin, where there's no way to say what fair value is.
Yeah. Did you read about that guy that lost his laptop a few years ago?
The dump or something?
Yeah. And he promised to pay about $20 million to the municipality if they find the laptop. That's nuts.
It's crazy. And I guess the value just keeps going up and up.
Wow. I guess the municipality has a real option now. They can really decide, what to do with this. And I mean, I actually I wonder how many Bitcoins, how many wallets are not retrievable.
Yeah, that I've seen some arguments about that, saying like there's supposed to be 21 billion million Bitcoins, but something like 10 or 20% of them are basically lost forever from people in the dump or people sending them into the wrong. Like, if you don't put the right kind of format and address in and try to send your Bitcoin, it kind of disappears. So there's like people that have just lost them or whatever. So it's hard to know.
My $5 was the same.
Yeah, until you found it.
Yeah. Crazy stuff. Wow. I mean, think about like the gold rush. It's not different. It's not much different than this, right? But you had to get on a truck, get some horses, fend off the Indians, the Native Americans, my apologies, and go all the way to California.
Well, I guess the one comment I'd say is that I'm gonna be totally wrong, but I would assume that everybody thought gold was valuable at that point. Like they thought gold is money or it's got value. And I think the fundamental different thing with Bitcoin is like there's these people like that guy you met in 2015 that are passionate about saying it's the future and it is money. And there's plenty of people that think it's a joke and don't get it. So you don't like gold already had that like universal understanding and people just gave it value, like no one questioned it.
Yeah, but so the difference, there's still like uncertainty, right? So there can be uncertainty about the price, or there can be uncertainty about the quantity. So as I understand, during the gold rush, people didn't really know. So there was this rumor that there was a lot of gold in California, but it wasn't very obvious where it was. And keep in mind that this is, there is no internet or Twitter or Reddit. That
What? What do you mean?
Anyway, all right. So I think we have reached the time limit.
Okay.
We should keep some of this good stuff for next week. And it's as usual, it's fun. Let's keep it going.
All right.